Welcome to Game and Grains. I'm your player one, Richard, and today we're going to be taking a look at Blue Note's recently released limited edition honey cask whiskeys. Now, as always, I will be sharing with you my tasting notes and letting you know, is this a sweet purchase or will it have you singing the blues? So grab your controllers, pour yourself a dram, and let's get into it. All right, now before we can give ourselves a pour, we have to unpack each one of these bottles. Now, I wasn't able to find any information about the 2025 release of these honey cask whiskeys, but I was able to find information about last year's. So we're going to go off of the mash bill for both of these from last year, and I would imagine that they're pretty much the same as the 2025 release. So starting off with the bourbon, they have a mash bill of 70% corn, 21% rye, and 9% malted barley. The rye, I believe, and I am going to use my little cheat sheet here, is 95% rye, 5% malted barley. Now, the proof points are going to be slightly different from last year as well. The proof points were a little bit higher last year, with the rye coming in at 117.2, and I believe the bourbon is 115.7. This year, for the bourbon, it comes in at 113.86 proof, and then for the rye, 116.49. So both slightly lower proofs on both of these. But I would imagine if they're anything like what these guys taste like, they're still going to be delicious. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Blue Note, Blue Note is under the parent company of Green River. I believe Green River sends their whiskey to Memphis, where Blue Note is, and then Blue Note ages and bottles their own product in Memphis, Tennessee. Just their standard products, Blue Note is really, really good. This is probably my third bottle that I have of their uncut, unfiltered store picks. You can't go wrong with anything Blue Note. So, all right, enough talking. We're going to go ahead and get into these. These are fresh cracks. I did remove the plastic, but I haven't opened these yet. So we're going to go ahead and just pour some in both of our Glens. I'll give you a quick rundown like we always do of our appearance, nose, taste, and finish. And then I'll let you know at the end, do I prefer the rye or do I prefer the bourbon? I am a little biased since I did have last year, so I kind of know which one I'm leaning towards, but new year and new release, so perhaps they will be different. I'm going to keep the rye over here. Now, I will say in my local area, I've noticed that there's more rye than there is actual bourbon of the finishes being sold. So I don't know if that is because of consumer feedback that they decided to go with more rye. Individuals that I've talked to prefer the rye over the bourbon. But I don't have an expert or an insider to share that information with me. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and get in on the bourbon. First, on the appearance, has a nice amber or caramely color. Legs are slowly creeping down. It does have legs. They're not as thick as perhaps some of the other whiskeys that I've had, but it is definitely slowly creeping down the glass. So we're going to go ahead and get in on the nose. So it's not overly honey. You definitely get some of the grassier hay notes that you would find if you are familiar with Blue Note. There is a sweet note to it. It does have a 70% corn, so of course you're gonna assume that you're gonna get some of those sweeter notes you would from a bourbon. But the honey is not, at least if it is there, it's not overpowering or overwhelming. It's very subtle. So we're gonna go ahead and get in on the taste. Again, this is the honey finished bourbon for this year. Cheers. Okay, so I feel like last year's um, was almost in your face honey, almost overly sweet. It was like drinking a dessert. This one, the honey is present, but I don't feel like it is in your face or as intense as last year's version. Um, Really neat little side story. So I said that Blue Note is bottled and aged here in Memphis, and they actually partner with a local community's beekeeping um, company. So there's a suburb that's right outside of Memphis that they've reached out. The other company harvests their own honey. And so there's actually a partnership between them and Blue Note. Blue Note will get their honey barrels and then put the whiskey in there to finish it. And then once they're done, they'll send the barrels back over to this honey company, which they will then put their honey in, and then they'll get some of that whiskey, that char, and they'll turn around and sell the product. So it's a really neat community project between the two. Again, let's go ahead and get back in on the taste. So again, all the notes that you come to know from Blue Note, you're going to get that grassy, almost sweet wheat type flavor, even though there's not any wheat in here. The grassy notes that I feel like I get from whenever I drink Blue Note. That honey is there, but again, it's not overpowering compared to last year. So all around is pretty good. The finish, one more time, because this is really good. So it doesn't coat the tongue. In fact, the finish, it's lingering and then just quickly dissipates. Again, you are left with some of that sweetness that you get from the honey finish, but it's not anything super crazy or overpowering. All right, the next one is going to be the rye. So I will go ahead and tell you, out of the two that I had last year, the rye was probably my favorite. I had to be convinced because I did enjoy just almost like a dessert in a glass. But the more I talked with people, the more they were like, well, you know, there's some complexity there. It's not overpowered by necessarily the honey. And I kind of joined in thinking that same way. So my player 2 is joined. We're going to go ahead and get her off. I know you can't be in the videos, kitty. All right. Bye, player 2. So on the rye, kind of the same thing. Looking on the appearance, nice amber color. In fact, when we compare the two, the coloration is about the same. Legs are still there. They're slowly creeping down the glass, which I would assume maybe in addition to the whiskey would be related to the honey. So next on the nose. So you are getting some of that rye spice there along with some of the honey. All right, so on the taste, here we go. Cheers. Okay, so the first thing that I get almost immediately is going to be that rye spice that is quickly masked by that sweet honey. So I feel like it is a nice balance between the two. It is a little bit more complex as far as flavor profile goes with the bourbon. As I'm letting it kind of sit on my tongue, I know we haven't made it to finish yet, but we drink a lot of tea in my household, and so sometimes whenever we have our tea, we sweeten it with honey. I like to lick the spoon, and for some reason, this is just reminding me of this pure honey that is there on the finish. So we're going to go ahead and get on the taste one more time. So again, just those rye spices that are there, and then it's immediately hit with that honey. Just like the bourbon, the finish is there for just a little bit. The rye spice dissipates and just leaves you with that honey flavor that is there on your tongue. All right, so we need to determine, was this a sweet deal or is it going to have me singing the blues? I'm going to go ahead and tell you, if you have the opportunity to buy either one of these are both great. Again, if you had last year's bourbon, I do feel like this is not as have a prominent honey flavor as this one. It's a little bit more subtle, a little bit more tame. You still get those delicious blue note bourbon flavors that you are used to, with just a slightly sweeter taste to it. And then, of course, the rye is equally as good as last year. You get that rye spice up front that quickly turns into that delicious honey flavor. So again, if you see either one of these on your shelves in your area, definitely be sure to pick up a bottle. You won't regret it. These are both phenomenal. It is my understanding that this is going to be an annual release. I have a friend who got to do a pick with a group, and I actually caught wind of this probably back in April or March, because he took a picture of the barrel, and on the front of it, you could just see honey kind of seeping out the front of it. I reached out to him, and he was like, yep, honey barrel or honey finishes are coming back again, and it should be an annual release. All right, guys. Well, I certainly hope that you enjoyed this video. My player too as well. As always, please make sure that you give these videos a like. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. And in the comments down below, let me know, have you tried any Blue Note? If so, what is your favorite? They have the regular offerings, the uncut, which is going to be a little bit stronger in some of those grassier hay type flavors. They have a crossroads, which I believe is their bottled and bond, and then they have special offerings as well. All right, guys. Again, I certainly appreciate you sticking to the end. I'm your favorite player one, Richard. This is your player two, Val. Have a good one.